recording the session. Again, just a quick reminder that today's session is focused on event management. What that means is that we're going to learn how to submit events in TM. Uh, these actions are mainly performed by the TS01 and TS07 roles, even though we're going to go through a brief review of what the TS02s and 08s are expected to do in terms of assigning carriers, freight POs, and a quick recap on updating charges, locations, and so on. So basically, if you guys were in yesterday's session, we're going to continue where we left off from yesterday's session. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If you guys have anything to ask or request, I'm going to take a look at that. Please add it in the chat so we can take a look at the history afterwards. And if you have any questions that weren't answered, I can always get to them later. So basically, we are now again in TM. If you remember yesterday, if you were in yesterday's session, what we did was we planned some transportation for a specific freight unit, and then we logged in as TS02s, or it could be TS08 as well, and we learned how to assign carriers and freight PO to the freight orders that were not vendor delivered. So remember, you always have in an FCA scenario, the one we were looking at yesterday, we have the vendor part that is delivering for one specific freight order, and then we also have the freight forwarder delivery, which was split into two freight orders. So let's go and recuperate that freight unit. So I'm basically going into the ERP Logistics Integration tab and clicking on Overview Transportation Requirements. And what I want to do is pull up that specific freight unit. So again, quick reminder, you can always search by DTR, you can search by original delivery, which is the inbound, the original order, which is the PO, or you can simply go and set some date ranges like I did here from November 1st to May 30th. Click on apply and you'll have a set of DTRs with their inbounds and so on. Then we also taught you guys how to quickly set up your results page so you can have all the information you need. For example, if I wanted to understand what Incoterm is linked to these documents, I could always search through here and always add this to my displayed columns. I can do so with other filters. For example, if I wanted to know any other information that I may not see. So since I don't know what I'm missing yet, basically what I want to do here is set up my results page so I know what I'm looking at and I know what I have to plan for and if anything is pending. So I can always add my delivery date to know which ones I need to plan for. I can always set my Incoterm as well. Original delivery, I can set this up at the top and even the original order. So I can cross-reference my DTR with my inbound delivery and my PO all at the same time. And I know what I'm planning for. Again, so here we have our original order. I can set this all the way up to the top and click on OK and see what that looks like in the system. So we have here all the information that I can cross-reference to. So I know that I'm planning for a specific DTR document that is linked to a PO in an inbound as well. I know what Incoterm that is, so I know if what I'm planning for is going to generate 1, 2, 3, 4 freight orders. Some of them will be vendor delivered, some freight forwarder delivered. So I could always filter by the Incoterm as I'm doing here. I'm only going to look at FCAs. And those are the ones displayed here. I can always select the delivery date and go from the latest to the earliest. And yesterday we were looking at the inbound delivery and we're looking at it here. The inbound is this column, original delivery, ending in 1-2, which was this one right here, which has delivery date of 20th December. We know that we have a DTR, we have a PO, and we also have some more information that could be very useful. If I drag the life cycle status column, this will tell me if the actual freight units are planned or in planning or process or completed. In this case, we have some that are still in planning. Remember that in planning means that they're not planned yet, while planned means they are. Okay. And we also have some other very valuable information in the execution status column, which I can drag over, which will show me if events have been submitted for these freight units. And that's important for today's session because that's actually what we're doing. So execution not started would mean that no events have been submitted for these freight orders. Okay, we have all the information required right here in this quick section. And now I know that none of these have had their events submitted for. Some of them are planned, some of them are not planned, the ones that say in planning. It's important to know before I continue that if we see that the execution is not started, we know that no events have been submitted either in CCP or in TM. So no vendors or freight forwarders have submitted events, neither have the TM planners. Now, if by any chance they have already been submitted, then we wouldn't be able to go back and delete those freight orders. Once we start submitting events for the freight orders, we can't get rid of them. Okay, so any changes to the freight orders in terms of updates and locations have to be done before we start submitting events. Yesterday, we planned this inbound delivery. So this DTR that is also linked to a freight unit, we planned it. We, as the TS02 or TS08, we actually came into the system and we assigned the carrier, we assigned the freight PO, and we edited the locations. We learned yesterday that once we edit the locations, if there was a big change, right, especially if we have an FCA Incoterm, the leg that is automatically planned by the system enters in conflict with the change that we have made. So if I change the date and it doesn't match with the one that was planned automatically by the system, we may encounter a conflict. So to solve that, what I did, and we can go to the DTR here, so we can see what I'm talking about. I deleted all the freight orders yesterday, all of the ones that were freight forwarder delivered, which are these two here, except for the vendor delivered. And when I tried to plan again, it was telling me, the system was telling me that there was a conflict with this vendor delivered freight order linked to the other two. So basically, I couldn't really plan anything in terms of changing the transportation proposal. So what I had to do was made sure I also deleted the vendor delivered freight order, and I did. So yesterday I got rid of the two freight forwarder delivered and the vendor delivered. So I ended up with no freight orders. Then the system, since it's FCA Incoterm, automatically plans your vendor delivered stage once again. It takes some time, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes or so, but it does automatically replan it. And once it's replanned, I also realized that it plans it again based on the last change that I made in the planning that I did yesterday. So it was still an airport instead of a port. So to do that, what I did is I went to the stages for the freight order here. So I'm clicking on this freight order. So you guys have an idea, just a quick update on what I did. And in the stages tab, what I did is I clicked on edit and I changed the destination location. Instead of the airport, I changed it to the port and I saved, and it allows me to keep this new this new destination location. Now, once you do that, there are times where you're going to have a message that says that your freight order is blocked. Okay, so I'm going to go to here to the tab here for block information. And I had a red sign here in the planning block or execution block. I don't remember which one it was. So this is something you can always override. Okay, if I scroll here to the right a bit, there's an option when you click on edit, okay, that allows you to overrule the blocking. So once you click on that, the blocking becomes green again and becomes okay. And it means that you can start planning once again. Even though you'll still see messages of blocking sometimes, I believe in the freight unit. In this case, it's fine because I finished the planning. But this color here that you see in green was actually red, telling me that there was a blocking. So I couldn't really plan the other two freight orders until I got rid of that blocking here. So basically, you know that you can delete all the freight orders that you've planned, even the one that is vendor delivered. Once the system regenerates the vendor delivered, make sure that it's not blocked. If it's blocked, simply access this freight order, go to the tab for blocking information and override this blocking. Once you save that, now you can plan for the other freight orders. And eventually that's what I did. And now I have them all here. So basically the planning is done for these. So what I would have to do now is make sure that the other two are also linked to a carrier, freight forwarder, and they have a freight PO. Because if I don't, and I'm going to show you what happens, the carriers cannot see these freight orders in CCP. And now let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what CCP looks like, because this is where the carriers would log in to start submitting events. So right now, the vendor delivered leg is actually linked to a carrier, which in this case is International Armored Group. And International Armored Group, whoever has the role of TS05 will have access to CCP and can start submitting events for this freight order. But we'll see for the other two, as you see here, dummy carrier, and that's the nomenclature for the freight orders that do not have a carrier assigned to them yet. We won't be able to see these two freight orders until I actually assign a carrier to these two. So let me show you what that looks like in CCP. Okay, so I'm going to drag CCP over to this screen so we can take a look at it. And this is what the CCP screen looks like, the login screen. So let me make this a bit bigger. And this is where the carriers freight forwarders would log into to start submitting events. Okay, I would click on log on. Okay, let me just type that once again. And we would log into CCP. So right now I would be the International Armored Group, someone in this, let's say the vendor in this company, somebody in this company would be logging in to CCP and would see that we have freight orders for execution, 178 freight orders for execution. I would click on this or simply go to the tab for freight order management. Okay, this is what CCP looks like. And before I continue, I want to emphasize that the roles of TS01 and TS07, okay, in TM will not submit events through this page, okay? This is strictly for carriers, vendors, freight forwarders to submit events through. We as planners will only see the events they submit in TM. Okay, we do not go into CCP and submit events for them. We submit events for them if they don't in TM, not in CCP. Okay, so this is strictly for vendors, freight forwarders. So I can click basically on this box here to see my freight orders that are pending. And what they will see here is a list of freight orders, which are basically stages in the transportation route that we have to start submitting events for. Okay, so we have a list of freight orders. We can filter by closed, canceled, block. We can see them all. We can export this to an Excel. We can actually submit events directly from this main page here. If we just click on confirm next, then I'll show you how that's done. But first, I want to show you how the vendor will have to search for, in this case here, either the freight order directly, or if they only have the information of the PO, which if I scroll to the right, you'll see we have a set of columns that pretty much define everything from source location, destination, planned date, means of transport, the distance, who's responsible, where it's going to, as you see here, the consignee, the number of stops, and a little more to the right, we have columns for PO, STO, freight PO, and MOU reference numbers. So basically, if we know the PO or the STO, we could always just search for it here, and that will limit our results page here. So I can go back to my display. Actually, I'm going to go back to the overview transportation. I'm going to see here, which is my PO, which is this one here, the one ending in 44. Okay, so I'm going to copy this number and I'm going to add this PO number into CCP right here. So I can always add this 1, 2, 3. Let me just make sure I'm copying the right number, 44, and that is the actual number. So I would click on search. And if you realize now we have one PO that is linked to one freight order, which is the 79 freight order. Okay, so we have only one freight order here that we would have visibility of. And why is that? This is the one that is vendor delivered. So for this vendor, International Armored Group, the PO that was added shows only one freight order. And why is that if I actually have three? Correct? You see that you have three here. Well, the other two haven't been assigned a carrier yet, so we won't be able to see them. Okay, we can only submit events for this one so far. So let's assign a carrier to these two. Okay, so we go back to our screen here before, and instead of searching in the DTR tab, which is the ERP Logistics Integration tab, we're going to go to Freight Order Management, and we're going to search for our inbound, and that will show us all the freight orders that are linked to that inbound that is also linked to that PO at the same time. We see a list of fields here, and we realize that we don't have an inbound field. Okay, so make sure, and always when you perform searches in TM, that all your fields are clear, are blank, and you're only populating the one you're interested in. If you go to change query here, you have options, a set of new options actually, that will tell you, okay, well, if you haven't found what you needed in the other screen, here you have more fields to populate. Basically, all the way at the bottom, we can add our ECC delivery, which is our inbound delivery number, or our PO, whatever we have access to. This is the actual inbound. You would click on apply, and that should show you now all the freight orders that are linked to that inbound. Okay, since we're in TM, we'll see all the freight orders linked to that inbound delivery document. We have the one for the vendor delivered and the other two that are still dummy carrier here. Okay, so now if you remember what I just showed you, I added the PO number here and we only had one freight order. So according to what I'm saying, if I assign the new carrier and I add this PO again here and I click on search, I should now see my other two, okay, freight orders. So let's see if that's the case. Remember that you can assign the carrier to one freight order alone, or you can do it to multiple at the same time. You can also access the document and assign the carrier and I'm going to show that quickly. If I simply click on the freight order number and I go to the tab, remember this folder shows you all the tabs that are not displayed, and you can go here to subcontracting and click on edit and always add the carrier right here, okay, under the subcontracting tab, or you can do so under the business partner tab where you see the carrier is also here, Z dummy. Okay, so you can do that like this. I'm just going to cancel this. I'm going to close, or you can do it directly from this page. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to click on subcontracting, which is also here. The same tab that we saw in the freight order is also here as an action button. So I'm going to click on that, go to assign carrier and SRM freight PO. And here is where I'm going to add the information of the carrier and the freight purchase order. Remember that when we're at this stage, we have already solicited for freight. We have our answer from our freight forwarder. We have the actual cost, the actual location, the actual dates. And now what we're doing is we're simply assigning the carrier to that freight order. So let me just make sure I have the correct information of the carrier, which is this one here. If you wait a little bit, the system will actually show you which carrier that is. So I'm clicking on that, and then the freight purchase order. And it's important that we remember that the SRM is linked to TM in the phase of shopping cart for goods, but in the phase of shopping cart for freight, there is no direct linkage. So even though we have a freight PO, it's not going to appear in TM. We have to add it manually. Okay, at least for now, that's the process. So we're adding our number here manually. Make sure you do it correctly. Okay, we click on OK, and now we should see that the two dummy carriers should change to the scan logistics. So it doesn't show automatically. Always click on refresh to see if you've done the process correctly. And here you go. So we have scan global logistics now assigned to these freight orders. So in a way, now we have a PO and an inbound that are linked to all these three freight orders. So when I go back to CCP, I should actually, searching by the PO, now see all the three freight orders, not just the one that is vendor delivered. And that will show you how now the freight forwarder will also have access to the freight orders and will be able to submit events. Okay, remember yesterday that once we've assigned the carrier and once we've assigned the freight PO, that was the first step of the TS02, TS08 roles. Now what we would have to do, okay, and I'm not going to do this again because we did it yesterday. What we would have to do is now add the correct locations that the carrier has told us that they're going to transport the goods through, add the correct charges, and also the correct dates of transportation if they're different from the ones that we planned. Okay, remember the ones that we plan are only estimations. They're only submissions of what we expect the transportation route to look like. They're not the actuals. So we would have to basically go into the freight orders and update these charges in the charges tab. Okay, we would have to add the actual charges right here. according to what the carrier is telling us that it's going to cost us per leg. And we also have the option. So once we have seen the charges here, we also know that we can change the stages if we go to Stages tab and change the locations. Now, what I said yesterday, and this is very important, is that we should only change the main carriage location, okay? In this case, this is the last leg, Brindisi Port to final destination, so we shouldn't make any changes to this stage. What we should look for is the main carriage stage, and what that means is that we're looking for the one that is going from either an airport to an airport or a port to a port, like this stage here. So it's the one ending in 80. We would change our source location and destination location here, and that will automatically update the other locations. Also here under stages in each freight order is where we would add the new planned dates. Okay, and then again, we would just update the charges here too. Since we did that yesterday and we have a recording for that, I'm not going to do it again because I would have to replan and delete and do the whole process. Okay, so basically that's just a quick reminder of what we did yesterday. And now once all that is performed, we will start with the event submissions. So according to what I said and what I want to check now is that now that I've assigned the carriers, I'm going to go to CCP and see if they all have access to all these freight orders. Right? Before I do that, I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat to see if anyone is asking for help or has any questions. So nothing so far. I don't see much. Okay, perfect. So let's go into CCP and now we'll see if we have any results here for this same PO. So again, I'm just going to make sure that I can refresh. Okay, I have all of them here, and now I'll just cross my fingers and hope that this PO shows the 3. So here you go. See, now I've assigned the carriers to those freight orders. I've added the same exact PO number that I did before, but now instead of just one a freight order that was linked to the International Armored Group, we now have 2 more, okay, which are the ones for the other carrier, the freight forwarder that we have assigned. Okay, so basically we have this information here too. And now we have access to all of them. We even have the ones that are linked to the freight PO, so we know exactly which ones are going to be freight forwarder delivered, and the one that is vendor delivered will not have the freight PO field populated. So there we go. Now we have the 3 of them. Okay, so let's start with our event submissions. Okay, I just wanted you guys to understand why it's important to do the prior process to this. And now we're going to see how submitting events in CCP affects TM and how submitting events in TM affects CCP. Okay, so there's a constant communication between the two. So basically, I can select from here one of the lines and simply go and say, okay, we'll confirm next. If you realize we have here some columns, one that says next opened event. So basically, every next event in sequence is going to show up here. So the first event should be loading begin for the vendor delivered stage. Okay, so if I select this and I say confirm next, it's going to tell me, okay, the planned date and time is this one. So let's report what is the actual date and time. So we could report, you know what? Well, we received it today. So we can always say the Friday the 13th. Okay, we can always add the time, which we can add right now. I'm just going to add the same time it is right now. And we can add a comment to this. Okay. And I'm going to add a comment so that you see that whatever I'm adding here now is going to show up in TM and it's going to be the actual words I'm adding here. Okay. So they're not going to make much sense in terms of if, what we would add in a real comment in terms of transportation, but at least it's going to show you that these two systems communicate with each other. Okay, so I'm going to write here, all okay with loading. And basically this drop down here right now doesn't have any other options. So I'm just going to leave this here. Now this comment that we're adding here, all okay with loading. Is everyone seeing this screen in CCP? Okay, no one has mentioned anything, but I'm being told that you can't see the screen that I'm in right now. Oh, okay. Good to know. Here, I thought everyone was seeing the screen. All right, so let me see if Okay, so I don't know how much you've missed so far. No one has mentioned that you couldn't see what I was doing in CCP. Can everybody see the screen now? If not, I can see if I can share a different screen. All right, guys, so that tells me...
I can see, Brian, I can see it.
But could you see it the whole time or just now?
No, the whole time.
Oh, the whole time. Okay. All right. So it's strange
Brian,
because...
you are able to see, but now we can see in MINUSMA.
All right, thank you guys. So it's strange because basically I've really made no difference from what I was doing in the other days, and everyone could always see the screens I was on. But today it seemed like it was different. Okay, so I don't know how much you've missed in this case. I basically, everyone saw how I assigned the carriers. Before I submit this event, I'm just going to cancel. So what I did, for those of you who have not seen the screen that when I switched to CCP, is I added the PO once again. I clicked on search, and this time I had my 3 freight orders because now I had assigned the carriers to the other 2. Before we could only see 1 freight order. What I've been talking about in this screen now is the submission of events. Okay, so basically when we submit events, we can do it from the confirm next button, which is what I was doing now. And I was also mentioning about the next open event here, which is linked to loading begin. So it always does this in sequential order. So if you're confirm next, what you're doing is you're submitting events in sequential order as they appear on screen here. All you do is select the freight order, which I'm doing now, click on confirm next, and then add the proper date and time and comment. Okay, now just a quick reminder, what you see now on screen is CCP. So TM planners do not use this to submit events. I just want to show you how these two communicate with each other. Okay, so I'm going to write here all okay with loading. All right, and I'm going to confirm. And we'll see that what I just added here, this text, all okay with loading, is going to appear under my event in TM for that specific event. Okay, you see at the bottom it says loading begin reported successfully. Okay, so we know that this first event has been reported successfully, and I did it through the confirm next button here. Now I'm going to actually click on the freight order so we see what that looks like when I go into that freight order in CCP. Okay, so we see now here that we have freight order details, which looks like this. We have everything that is linked to this freight order in terms of distance, who's the shipper, consignee. We have a section here for notes. We see the PO that is linked to it. In this case, no freight PO because this is the vendor delivered stage. We see the event that I just submitted now, which is loading begin with the date, time, and the actual comment, all okay with loading. Again, we're still in CCP. We realize that in CCP, the events are divided into locations. So if this occurs at source location, we have the 3 events linked to source location. If you have the destination location, which we see here below, Dubai, you have the events linked to that destination location. If we keep scrolling down, we have a tour of events section. This tour event section is specific to CCP, and it's linked to any events that occur during transportation. So somewhere in between source and destination location. So all the events that we add here are going to be unexpected because we never expect something to happen in between locations. If you realize the events that are here in the source and destination location are those linked to things that we expect to happen. Loading, loading end, departure, correct? The next one will be the arrival, unloading, and unloading end. Okay, so these are all expected events. We can also add unexpected events in these sections. If we click on add event, and I'll show you how that's done, to the events that are here. If you see these on screen, if you see an event on screen, that means it's expected automatically. If you don't, it's going to be unexpected. That's why you don't see any events on the tour of events because they're all going to be unexpected. You see there's also an attachment section, and we can always browse and add any type of attachment that we would like to in CCP. So the vendors, freight forwarders could always just click on browse, select any file and upload it, okay? The same thing with notes. We can add a note here, but this note will be for the entire freight order. So whatever notes we add here are going to be linked to the entire freight order and not to the specific events. Okay, to add a note to a specific event, you do as I did before. You select the event and you add it in the comment section. This comment will appear in TM linked to that specific event. The notes will appear under the Notes tab. Okay, and I'm going to add a note here. For example, this should be seen in TM. I'm going to write here simply. Now, if you click on enter, you're simply going to go below, but you add the note here and the note will appear below saying that on this date and time, you submitted this note. I'm going to add another one, all okay. Now, remember, this is what the vendors, freight forwarders are doing and not the TM planner, but I want to show you how these systems communicate. Okay, so we're understanding how this works, and it's going to be very similar in TM, except that in TM, you don't have a division of events. What you have is all events combined together. I'm going to submit another event, another expected event here under loading end, and I'm going to say that the loading ended on the same day, and it ended maybe at 11:34, so it was very quick. I'm going to add a comment here, loading, okay, and then we can update our events, and simply we'll see we got another green check mark here under status, and everything seems to be fine. Okay, now if I want to add an unexpected event to this event, all I do is go to Add Events. And here we can select from a drop-down list of events. It's very important, this is something you guys should also probably know, that if we select an event that is not displayed, it will show up as unexpected. If we select one that is displayed, for example, one of them was departure, we're going to be submitting it as if it were expected. If we submit the departure event twice, the second time around, it's going to take it as unexpected. Okay, so we could always add an unexpected event here. For example, if we say that we have an issue or maybe some cargo information or some other event that is not there. For example, I'm going to say that at loading end, there was an issue. I'm going to say here on the 13th, I'm going to mark the same exact time, 35. A little later, I'm going to say some items were damaged during loading. Okay, I'm going to say here. And confirm. This event should also show up below. I'm going to just expand this section a bit, and we should see another expected event here. So in a sense, we're seeing here that the last item I added here is the one that it's taking as loading end instead of showing me the last one I added here. Let me see if this is going to, okay, so it's glitching a bit right now, CCP. Okay, I'm going to add another one for loading end to see if that one does show as unexpected. I'm going to do the same thing here with the time, 36, and I'm going to go with unexpected and see if this one does show. For example, let me scroll down. Oh, there you go. So that's what I was expecting to happen before, okay? So you see our initial event shows here as unexpected because it doesn't have a planned date, but the latest entry that we add is going to always show up as the expected event. Okay, so this is something that is mainly related to the vendors and freight forwarders, but I want you guys to understand how what I'm adding here, and now we're going to go into TM and see how that's reflected there. I'm going to scroll down. Now I only added information to the source location of events, and I want you guys to also understand that when we're submitting events, not all these events are going to automatically notify the TM planner in TM that an event has been submitted. Okay, only critical events like, for example, departure will generate automatic notifications in TM. Okay, loading in and loading begin won't, but things like departure will. Okay, also events like, for example, a arrival will also launch a notification, while unloading begin and loading end won't. All unexpected events that they add on their tour of events will launch also notifications. So I'm going to add one here. Let's say that during the transportation from source to destination location of this specific freight order, there was a damage. I'll also add the time. Now I'm just adding anything here so that you guys can see. Items were damaged. And I'm going to confirm that. So all the events I'm adding here on the tour of events, let me scroll down a bit. we'll see that these are unexpected in TM. So I basically added an event, I added some notes, I added unexpected events all in CCP, and now I'm going to see how these reflect in TM. Okay, I haven't added any attachments, but I can add that as well. Let me see if I can just browse and quickly add a PDF. There's a limitation in terms of the types of files that you can upload in CCP and in TM, okay? Yeah, the limitations go down to, I think, PowerPoints. You can't upload the same thing as JPEGs or PNG files, okay? But anything from Word documents, PDFs, and Excels, you can upload into these attachments. So let's say maybe I want to add the UN holidays. I'm going to add that PDF here. And once I have it ready, I'll just click on upload. And now I have my event upload, my attachment uploaded here too. Okay, so we have done pretty much everything that we want to now go into TM and check. Now I'm going to perform the same exact actions in TM and see how those reflect in CCP. But first, let's go and see how everything I just added in CCP is reflected in TM. Okay, so all this has been added. I can simply close this section, and now I'm going to move on to my other screen. So let me just drag this out of the way. Okay, so I see now what's happening. So you guys are still seeing this screen. I'm going to move it out of the way, and I'm going to change the screen that I'm sharing. Okay, so just bear with me 1 second, because now I know what happened before, and I'm going to go back to TM, and now you guys should all see my TM screen here. Okay, so we're back into TM, and now what I'm going to do is navigate to this freight order, which is the same one I was submitting events for in CCP. I'm going to click on that. Please let me know in the chat if you guys are seeing this screen now. Okay, if you're not, I can also make arrangements for that. But yesterday we didn't seem to have a problem when I was doing exactly this. Can everyone see the freight order that I've opened?
Yes, I can see.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So then I don't know what was happening before. Okay, so right now I'm looking at the 28879 freight order. Everyone should be seeing this on screen. Very good. I'm glad you guys can. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the tab called sorry, execution. And in the execution tab is where I'm going to see the events. Okay, these are the events that will submit as TM planners in TM. But if you realize, some of these already have events submitted. These are the ones that I was showing you guys in CCP. Okay, so we submitted the loading begin. We submitted it twice, once as expected, once as unexpected. You see, so we have the loading end, the one that was submitted twice, shows with a sort of a thunder symbol, and it's an unexpected event. While as the first one I submitted, or in this case, the last one, is reported as expected event. Loading begin has also been submitted. The damage was also submitted as unexpected. And now let's take a quick look and see the notes, right? So if I'm selecting my first one, loading begin, I said that everything was correct. You can also see that the source of execution was done in CCP, so you know this was submitted by a carrier and not a TM planner. If you look at the section below, you see that the event, loading begin, has a note. In this case, it's a reason in TM, all okay with loading. So those are the notes that was adding to the specific event. So that's how you can read what the carrier is telling you in CCP. The second one, the unexpected, actually, let's go to the expected loading end. It says here unexpected. So basically, any other updates that a carrier makes to an event in CCP. So the newest update will always be the one reflected as the expected event, while the latest will always show as unexpected. It's a bit strange, but in this case, this is what happens. So the first one I submitted in CCP for loading end, which was earlier, if you see the time, 11:35, shows as unexpected in TM. And that's the one where some items were damaged during loading, okay, at 11:35. The damage one, the one that I added under tour of events, shows here also as unexpected, and I say here items were damaged. So you see all the comments I made to each of the events are reflected here. The dates and times are also accurately reflected. You see the ones that don't have a planned date, like this one here, are unexpected. This one here also unexpected, and it doesn't have a planned date. Okay, so everything we did in CCP is now here in TM. Now let's go to the Notes tab. If we go to the Notes tab, we should have the notes that we added in CCP as well. This should be seen in TM and all okay. These are the two that I submitted. All right, they're at 11:33 and they're on today's date. So we see that the notes are also here. So notes works as a sort of an inbox of messages that we share with the carriers. And here's where we basically just add comments on the freight order in general, not just a specific one, okay? Same thing with the attachments. If I go to the attachments tab, I should be able to see the UN holidays, okay? So basically what I added in CCP is now also in TM, okay? So everything has gone through. Now as a TM planner, let's say I'm the one responsible now for submitting the rest of the events. Okay, so I would go back to my execution tab, and now I submit events through here, through TM. So how is that done? And this is really what is related to you, okay, and how you submit the events in TM. So let's say we have already our events here. We see that we have unloading begin, unloading end, arrival at destination, and departure. So one of the events would be missing is departure. This will show up in CCP as the origin location events, but here you see we have them all combined in one big section. If you simply go to edit and report the event, if you simply click on report, the event will be submitted as of today's date and today's time. If you want to add a different date and time, you have to do this manually, okay? You have to simply select the box for the date and add that. Okay, you can always make the different the changes here to actual date of event. You can do it below. For example, if I want to add today's date or yesterday's date, I can do that too. Of course, there'll be a conflict with the other ones, but let's see how that works if I just simply go and I say report event. Okay, departure will show up as submitted, today's date and the time that it is right now. Okay, and also that the event was submitted in this document, meaning in TM and not CCP as the other ones were. Okay, so we submitted this one. We can also go and say, you know what, I'm going to insert an event. And when you insert an event, automatically what TM does, and here, let me scroll up and see here at the top, you see it adds a new line, but it's always unexpected. So whatever event you insert will always be unexpected in TM. If you report, it'll be reported as expected if it's actually displayed. If it's not displayed, you'll also have to click on report, but it'll be unexpected. For example, if I click on the drop down and I say damage, okay, as I was saying before, I'll also specify the location where it happened. I can say it happened at source location because it's the departure. We can always add a reason here too and say items were damaged during transport, for example, here, and we click on report. You'll see now that the damaged event here shows up as unexpected. Actually, let me scroll down to see the whole screen. Okay, so we have the damage and we have the time, date, no plan date, and we can see if we select the line that it says items were damaged, or if maybe this is the one I submitted myself because this is the one that was submitted in this document. You can always go back here to understand which ones you're submitting versus the ones in CCP. If you select this one, you'll see items were damaged during transport. So this is what you added as a TM planner. So basically, to submit expected events, what you do is you simply select the event. You can add the date manually here and say the 13th. You can add the time manually here as well, 11:47, and then simply click on report, and that will submit your report, arrival at destination, the event, sorry, right here, as expected. If you want to simply report it as today's date and time without having to add anything manually, you just simply click on report event and unloading begin will also be submitted. If you want to submit an unexpected event, remember you always insert the event first and then you select the event. Once you select it here, you can always select where it's coming from. So always remember to go all the way up to the top. The system is a bit slow right now. Click on the drop down and maybe click on delay and say that there was event reason, delay in arrival, let's say. Okay, so that's done. Remember that once you've added the information, you also have to add the location where this happened. Let's say it happened at destination, and then you report it, and that's how it's submitted. Okay, you click on save, and now all these events are saved here as well. So I basically submitted all expected except unloading end, and I added a couple of unexpected events here as well. Okay, so remember, each line, you add a comment to each one of those lines, and that'll be reflected in CCP. You can add one here too, just a test. So once you've even submitted something, you can always go back to it and report it again or resubmit it again, okay? And it'll always update your latest submission. So it doesn't mean that once you've submitted an event, you can't make any changes. You can still go back and make changes to it as well. Okay, the one thing you can't do is delete a submitted event. Once you've submitted one, it's there. All you can do is, for example, say if you've submitted something twice and you didn't mean to, maybe you can simply select the item, make sure that it's the one that you have submitted and not the one that the vendor has submitted. We select it, and maybe here we can say disregard. Okay, but there is no way that you can actually delete an event as of now. Okay, maybe that will change in the future, but as of now, you can't. Okay, so that is all for submitting expected and unexpected events and adding comments. I'm going to check the chat to see if anyone has a question. Any questions on submitting expected, unexpected events in TM? Okay, I'm just going to wait for a few seconds. If I see anything in the chat, I'll pay attention to it. If not, I'll move on to the notes and to the attachments. Okay, so nothing there right now. It seems quite straightforward. Just remember the difference between expected and unexpected is basically shown here with the icon under status. So let me go back to that screen right here. Okay, under status, reported event, unexpected event. So these icons will pretty much identify which ones are expected and unexpected. You report them all, whether they are expected or unexpected. If you insert, it's always unexpected. And remember to add comments under the event reason. You can do so directly from this screen, adding the date and time, or you can do so from the section below. To the right, you have here who is submitting the events, if it's done through CCP or if it's done through TM. Okay, they're all here. All right, so that's clear. Let's move on to our notes tab. In the notes, we can also communicate with the carriers by adding a note here. So basically, we would select from the text type any sort of text that we want to add. Maybe we want to make a remark this time around, and we can add something here just to see in TM. In CCP, sorry. Okay, actually, it will show you who created it, if it was the vendor or yourself, the date and time. And you also should have an option here for selecting if you want this text to be internally kept or externally kept. Okay, so meaning you want the vendor to see it or you just want to keep it internal for another TM planner to see. And once that is done, you should be able to simply save the comment that you've added, and it will be, see, data saved successfully. And now this remark will also show up in CCP when we go into and see it. You see that it was created by me here, so the user changes. And basically all we've done is added a note here in the Notes tab, which will also show under Notes in CCP. So this is quite straightforward. Very simple. You have an option for language. You have the text type that you have to add. And the content here is where you add your text, okay, your note. Everything else is pretty much done for you, okay? So we've done the saving here. Now let's go to the Attachments tab, and let's see if the attachments is working in the environment. I know I had some issues yesterday with the attachments, but I think the chat is becoming a bit active. Can you add attachments? Okay. Very good. Yes, Ildefons. Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so we have the Attachments tab, and we're clicking on Insert. We see that we have an attachment already. This was the one added in CCP. We go to Insert. We click on File, And that will, again, basically, this is pretty straightforward. You're all used to doing this already in your computers. We can add the attachment type right here. If it's a legal document, a link, a rate table. In this case, I'm just going to leave attachment. I'm going to add a description to it. So maybe I can say UN holidays again, because I'm going to add the same PDF. Click on next, browse, and then you'll just have to perform the search in your computer. Now, you'll have to allow access because, again, you're using Citrix Umoja, so it's going to require access to your computer. And here you'd have to just select the correct drive to be able to upload something to TM. So in this case, I can try my local disk. I don't know if this one is the one that will allow me to. And if not, I'll just add anything that I have here in my desktop or in an O drive, for example. Maybe I can add a different document here. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add anything else here. And then I can just delete it because I don't want to keep this later on, but I'll just delete this. So I'm just going to select an Excel here. So we have this option. I'm going to click on open. So, okay, it tells me that the path does not exist. Okay, so maybe I can select a different file. Let's see. There you go. Okay, so it's just giving me trouble with the path. Okay, so let me see. I can't add the PowerPoint. So just bear with me for a second. But anyway, if I can find the file, fine. And if I can't, I'm just going to skip this part. Okay. I didn't prepare any documents to upload. So if I can show you this, fine. And if I can't, let's see. All right, so I'm having some trouble finding a file that I can use. Okay, let me see if that one works. Okay, the system seems to be thinking here, but it's not uploading any documents. I know it wasn't working that well before, so yeah, I'm just having trouble uploading something here, but basically that's how it works, okay? So you insert a file, you add an attachment, make sure it's not a PowerPoint, make sure it's not a JPEG, and this file will be attached here as well. You also have a section here for drop files, but I'm not sure that this actually works. I can even try to maybe drag and drop a file here right now and see if that works, but I don't guarantee that. So I'm going to open something here maybe and drag and drop the UN holidays. I'm going to try, but yeah, it's not yet available. Okay, so I don't know if in production it will be, but you can simply drag and drop files there as well, and that should be working just fine for you. Okay, so Ildefonse, that's basically how that works. All right, you would add the attachment once you can spend time. I don't want to spend time here just looking for a file, and that will show in CCP. Okay, so again, remember, we've done this only for one of the legs, only for the vendor delivered freight order. We've added notes. We've tried to add an attachment. We're unsuccessful there. The execution, we've submitted events, expected and unexpected. So what I want to do now is show you how this reflects now in CCP. Okay, so just bear with me while I change screens here. I want to make this CCP screen available because I'm not sure you guys can see the screen. Can everyone see the CCP screen now?
Yes.
Yes, all right,
Yes,
perfect. Okay, very good. Thanks, Honore. Okay, so I'm going to click on the freight order now, and I'm going to see that all the events that I have added in TM are also reflected here. So let's start first with the notes. We should see that we have the notes added in TM as well. You know what I'll do? I'm just going to refresh to make sure that these notes were added here. So let's go, click on refresh, and here you go. Okay, so we see the note that I added before just to see in CCP. Okay, so that's the one I added. You see the user is different. You now see that you have a list of events here that I added in TM, loading begin and departure loading. So I can always expand this a bit. I'm just afraid because CCP sometimes glitches. You see how large that section is, We also saw that I submitted some events for the destination location, arrival, also my comments, just to test. I also added a series of unexpected events, which here in CCP show up as tour of events. Here we see the damaged ones, the delays, and the text that I added here too. Disregard, items were damaged, delay in arrival. So anything you add as unexpected events in TM will show up under the tour events in CCP because that's where the unexpected events show up. All the expected events will show up under the expected events sections in CCP, as you see here, and also at the top. Okay, and basically where you would see the attachments would be down here. Any attachments you add in TM would show up here at the bottom. We just had some issues with that in TM uploading, but basically you would see them right here. So that is, in a nutshell, what I wanted to show you guys how that works, right? How submitting events in CCP reflects in TM. It's responsibility of the TS01, TS07 to do so. And then I also showed you how submitting events in TM will impact CCP, okay? And how to submit expected, unexpected events in both. Remember, you're only responsible for submitting events in TM, not in CCP. I also taught you how to add the notes, how to add comments to events, and how to attach files. Okay, so basically that's how it would work, and that's how we would communicate with the carriers from now on, and that's how we can track our transportation. So like this, we can keep a minute-to-minute update, day-to-day update on a website that will track any events instead of keeping this through email, however it is you're doing it nowadays in your mission. However, you keep track with this with the carriers, whether it's emails, phone calls, pieces of paper, however it is you do so. The way it's been done now, or the way it's going to be done now and in the short future, is like this. CCP will be for the carriers to submit the events, and this is how we track what's happening with our shipments. And in TM, we will also be able to submit events and track what is happening with our shipments and keep communication with vendors, freight forwarders. Okay, so I know the time is up, but we can use some minutes now to maybe if you have some questions or you want me to go through something again, this would be the perfect time. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. Please add any questions you may have before I close the session, or just unmute yourselves and speak up. Anything I haven't covered or anything I did too fast and you'd like me to do again? Okay,
hi, Brian, this is Adrian. Can you hear me?
Yes, Adrian, sure, I can.
Sorry, I've been in and out of the meeting. I've had quite a few to go to this morning. Did you mention regarding putting an unexpected event where you have the proof of delivery document?
I haven't, no.
Okay, because it has important, it does have important impact on TM. That if anyone puts in the particular document, which is the proof of delivery, it will close the FOs that are predecessors. So it won't close any following on, but any FOs that still are in process that haven't been completed, for instance, will be blocked from adding any events.
Okay, Adrian, so thank you very much for that reminder, okay, because this is very important actually. The proof of delivery document, which is usually the last event, right? So if we went to our, let's say, our last leg, right, in the transportation route that we have, I think this is the last leg. Let's see, proof of delivery. There you go. So you see the event here, proof of delivery. Once we've submitted this one, and we should only really submit this in the last leg, right, as our final document to submit. And this is the one that is usually or should be or must be only submitted by the TM planners, right, in TM and not submitted by the vendors. Once we submit this event, what we're going to do is we're going to close, like Adrian said, all predecessing documents. So all freight orders will eventually close or become blocked or locked, and we won't be able to update any more events with that. Now we can add this proof of delivery event as unexpected to each of the predecessing freight orders if we want to close them. Let's say, for example, if I wanted to add it to my first leg, right, the 8879, and I want to add an unexpected event here, I can do so and select my proof of delivery document. If I do that here, if I added this event, what I would be doing is closing this freight order. Okay, since this is the first one, it has nothing to close prior to it, and it won't affect the ones coming after it. Okay, but this should not be submitted until the last leg, right? That will close all the other freight orders, okay, all the other stages, all the other legs. So this event is the one that we always submit at the last stage, and it should always be submitted by the TM planner. Okay, it's the proof of delivery event, and that will close all our freight orders, all predecessing freight orders, as this is the last event to submit. Okay, Adrian, so thank you for that remark. If you want to add something that I may have missed here, please do.
Yeah, technically it should never be added as an unexpected event. It should only be selected, and they have to make sure that all the other events have been completed before the proof of delivery goes in. It's one of the requirements that if they were to put this in, it would literally block all the FOs, so you couldn't add any additional events.
Exactly. Okay, so thank you very much for that remark, Adrian. So keep that in mind. Remember, you should not add this as an unexpected event in TM, or the carrier should not add this as unexpected events in CCP because of the impact it has in the freight order. Okay, remember, you should always finish submitting all the events that you have in the freight order, particularly for one leg, then do so for the next leg, and the proof of delivery should only be submitted in the last leg as a closer to all the predecessing documents, okay? And always here as the expected event, not as an unexpected event. Okay, and some questions in the chat here. I see that. Is there a specific role to do so, or can everybody track the events? Okay, so basically those who are submitting events are TM planners, so it should be the TS01 and TS07. Now I know there's also display all roles, right, like TS03, TS09, that will have visibility on the events being submitted, so they'll be able to track it visually, but they won't be able
Brian, where are you, Brian?
Hello? Hello? Where is Brian?
We lost Brian. Anyone? Anyone can hear us?